Yeah. Well, it's for the most part. But it will get.
Yeah. So.
Always never walked through the CP building. It's done.
Yeah.
Quite the building.
Who helped me?
I worked Saturday and Sunday, and I woke up this morning
Is
thinking it
he
was Friday.
your backup?
It's gonna be 1 week.
I did.
Oh, they want to.
I can't figure
They
out why.
hold on for years.
That's what I thought. They fire sale, fire
She went
sale.
off.
It's filing week, so.
Do all
that's
that
why.
work and then.
What do you finally do?
No.
Yeah, maybe I should wake up. Cheated on me.
Oh, gosh. When I was with my son, yeah, he used to have those drinks and they were actually true, so.
There's a, it was the
There was
subconscious
merit to
speaking
them.
you.
There was definitely some merit.
Oh, yeah.
Volunteered myself for this stupid review.
They're all plugged in. Looks like you're plugged in and they're at the floor.
I mean,
They were
send them
not part of the
your
council.
rounding number.
And so.
Should probably give her my social
that's
security
what
number
that
too.
secretary-
Definitely.
So I volunteered for that for just temporary. I was like, okay, I can just do it
the other
for
day.
the summer, that's okay, but usually we can find somebody else.
He's looking for the
So,
out.
in addition to that, there's a
Whoa.
I was like, wow, that is
purchasing
something
policy that.
Well,
Lure me
No,
in.
it's not, there's no power cord coming out of your table.
There's something
But I
that
was
my
like,
eyes
oh,
just get so crossed.
There's no
Yeah.
power cord to the table.
I eat those birds, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like,
Especially with the
I'm
material
so
that we're
weird.
doing, you know. it's-
I don't know, I
it's
didn't
interesting
actually
if
click the
we're-
link, I just kind of clicked.
something I-
Yeah, dryer than.
Yeah.
I had to screenshot it.
That is funny.
Very weird. Advertisements I got in my email. Is for
Help.
a servicing company, but
Oh,
apparently
okay.
it's something
I
else.
was getting ready to say. I think they don't need any help.
No.
Okay.
I don't open up anything.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I didn't click the link, I just opened it to delete it.
It's amazing how many banks I don't bank at. I've got credit card issues with.
I owe a lot of money to a lot of invoices.
I've got a Nigerian princess though that's gonna help me.
Oh, that's good.
Did you know you could opt out of the credit card offers that come in the mail?
Yes.
There's an opt out, so you stop getting those.
That'd be nice.
Yeah. It's online, it's 5 years, and if you send in the form, it's permanent. So, like I do not.
I think they put it at the bottom of
I've
their office.
done that because I'm so paranoid that someone's gonna steal my mail and,
Yeah, they've been breaking into our box. They've
That's
broken
what I
our
just-
box 3 times in the last
oh my
month.
goodness.
Wow.
Yeah, ours got broken into twice, and
And
we all put cameras up. And neighbor works for the post office and got some stickers that said federal law, you're going to the big house if you break into this again.
yeah, well, I went to talk to the postmistress and I got pissed off at her. Like, you're worthless. And so I contacted the congresswoman. It's a good time, she's running. So she said she'd look into it.
Okay.
I actually had a decent experience for the first time ever, a decent experience with
Oh,
them.
yeah,
So,
maybe it's just me.
yeah.
Well, it looks like it's 6 o'clock and Mr. Johnson is here. Mr. Johnson, it's a pleasure to have you, sir. Ms. Urban, do you have anything for us?
No, just that Mr. Johnson is here from Cressa and he is going to give us a presentation for introduction to emergency management. So I'll turn it over to him.
Again, Mr. Johnson, it's a pleasure to see you, sir. We, since we last met, there are three new folks who haven't done this so far. So we appreciate you coming this evening.
Thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity to present to the council. For those of you who have not met me, I am Scott Johnson. I am the emergency manager for Clark Regional Emergency Services Agency, CRESA, and I'm your emergency manager. And what I'd like to do tonight is explain to you what CRESA is, what we do for the city of Battleground, how we work with your municipal leaders as well as the council to help make Battleground and its surrounding communities more resilient to disasters, respond to, and recover from them. So I'm going to take the opportunity now to share my screen because I do better talking with pictures. So, all right. So CRESA, Clark Regional Emergency Services Agency. We are the consolidated 911 and emergency management agency for all of Clark County. We provide fire dispatch and call taking, police dispatch and call taking, and EMS dispatch and call taking, as well as emergency management. So we provide that service to all 7 cities within the county and the county, 10 law enforcement agencies, 14 fire agencies, 1 ambulance company. We are pretty much unique in the state of Washington as a one-stop shop for all of that. The Emergency Management Division, as I mentioned, provides emergency management to the 7 cities in the county, as well as the county. We are part of 2 partnerships because of our location here in Southwest Washington. We are part of Washington State Homeland Security Region 4, which is a Homeland Security grant organization that facilitates cooperation between the counties of Skamania, Clark, Cowlitz, and Wahkiakum on our side of the river. On the Oregon side, we are part of the Portland Urban Area Security Initiative. That is another federal grant that is given to the 30 largest urban areas in the nation to help support terrorism preparedness and response. On the Oregon side, that is Columbia County, Washington, Multnomah, and Clackamas, and Clark on our side. Essentially what emergency management is, we are the governmental function that works with primary responders as well as community partners, public and private, to make sure that we have the mechanisms in place to, if we can, lessen the impact of disasters. If we can't lessen them, then do what we can to get ready for them, respond to them when they recur, and recover from them. So that's what we try to do. We do it because it's both the right thing to do, because it's our job, and because the revised Code of Washington 38.52070 requires that each jurisdiction within the state have a local office of emergency management or participate in a consortium, which is what CRESA is, to provide that service for you. How we do it in Clark County, again, CRESA is tasked by both Battleground City Code and our local agreement to provide emergency management to the city of Battleground. We provide it to the other 6 cities in Clark County as well again as the county. We are funded 60% by per capita based on population contribution from each of the participating jurisdiction and 40% federal grants. We plan and mitigate. That's where we work with specific community partner to create plans, frameworks, policies. These are things that we try to have in place so that we can deal with incidents that we believe are likely to occur to lessen the impact of them, something like a seatbelt. We also prepare and respond. We help educate community members on what they can do before disasters. We support our communities during and after disasters. And then the recovery part is how we help to have people adjust to the new normal that they experience after a disaster. These are some of the regulatory requirement plans that are maintained by my office here at CRESA: state mandated comprehensive emergency management plan, disaster transportation plan. We do a lot of planning. And we do that so that your folks can focus on helping Battleground prepare internally to be as resilient and responsive as they can be. These plans not only give us frameworks to work from and give us places to start, when we start getting to disaster aid coming from state and federal partners, having these plans in place shows that we've done our due diligence to be as resilient as I can, which also helps to facilitate, in many cases, federal disaster declarations and the funding that comes along with those. Things we use. The feds love using acronyms, and I'm going to try to make this as painless as possible. If you're really interested in this, there are 8 hours of FEMA online death by PowerPoint videos that you can take to become very proficient in these FEMA acronyms. But essentially, we use something called the National Incident Management System. It's a standardized system of response that is used by first responders, public safety officials, community partners across the nation. And it's essentially a framework that allows us to respond to disasters of any size in any jurisdiction across all jurisdictional and discipline boundaries. Basically, it has 3 primary components. The first is the incident command system. Second is multi-agency coordination. And the third is public information. The big difference between command and coordination: Chief Fort does command. When something happens regarding the Battleground Police Department, he's the one who's in charge. That happens at the incident command post. Those are the initial first responders that are there on scene, making the decisions based on the input they got. It's the act of actually putting boots on the ground and making those decisions as they need to be made. I don't command anything. When we have disasters in Clark County, my command authority ends with choosing what flavor of coffee we serve in the EOC. I help with coordination. Coordination is providing support, resources, information, decision-making to those in command. And that's essentially the role of appointed and elected leaders. They provide the first responders in law enforcement, fire, EMS, and public works the information, tools, decision-making authority that they need to deal with the incident as it's occurring, to mitigate the damage it will do, to keep it from growing in size, and to help provide life safety support, incident stabilization, and the other key components. And this is an important thing to understand. It's especially important when we realize that the role of the first responders in their command authority is really predicated on them making decisions as they see anything. And the coordination role in many ways is very hard. A lot of leadership officials are prone to action. That's why you chose to serve your communities the way you do. And taking the time to allow command to do theirs while you provide coordination is sometimes really hard. I spent 22 years as a door kicker in the military, and I liked it a lot. I was good at it. So they promoted me in charge of other door kickers, and I did that really well. After a few years, my value was not in kicking doors because I was a little bit older and wiser. My value was in providing those door kickers the support they needed. My heart was still in it, but my weight and authority was better placed supporting those on the front than being on the front. And sometimes that can be a challenge, but it is really the role of those in the coordination position. So what is the incident command system? It's a standardized all hazard process that we use to deal with anything from a single car accident up to incidents of national importance, such as the Deepwater Horizon spill, the fires that Washington and Oregon experienced in 2020. It allows us to prioritize what we do. It allows people from multiple jurisdictions and disciplines to work together more effectively. And it provides us a tool to focus our energy where it's needed the most. Some key things to understand about the incident command system, and these are terms that you will hear a lot, is the incident command post. This is set up by the first responder. I know that sounds redundant, but it's essentially where fire, law, or EMS or public works will decide they can best lead from on the scene. It's close enough to see what's going on, but not so close as that it interferes with those people. We restrict access in the incident command post to those that really need to be in there. Everybody wants to be there because that's where decisions made and that's where the action is. I'd like to be there. Instead, I have an office that's in the middle of downtown Vancouver because that's where I can more effectively support Chief Fort, Fire District 3, the Public Works Department, because that's where I have access to information, resources, and other things they may need. Multi-agency coordination systems. That's the next part of the National Incident Management System. So multi-agency coordination. This is essentially you working with me working with you, and both of us working with the first responders. It's a system that allows first responders to talk to their policymakers. It allows policymakers to talk to the EOC. It's how we all work effectively together to get people to get resources to the people who need them. The first part of it is the Emergency Operations Center. I'd like to ask, have you ever seen that TV show 24 with the real cool TV sets and the holographic 3D projectors? Show of hands. Okay, I don't have that. My office down here in Cressa is pretty much an open conference room. We got a couple TV projectors. The point is, what we do in the EOC is we provide resource coordination, information coordination, decision-making support. And by that, I mean we provide those who make decisions with information they may need to make the best decision they can given the constraints of what we know. Often we call that the least worst decision because frankly, what we know is usually very little. We can provide a common operating picture, and then we provide contact with other jurisdictions at the county level, state and federal partners. And again, I want to emphasize the Emergency Operations Center does not command at all on the on-scene level. I'm your emergency manager and I'm here to support you in any way we can. But in no time do we ever make any decisions for any part of any of the jurisdictions that we support. That's not what we do. We provide information, we provide expertise, we provide resources. As it says, the EOC is as much a process as it is a location. It's where information flows in and is triaged to flow back out up to decision makers so that they can make an effective decision, or down to those who are dealing with it so that they have the information they need. We spent a lot of time in 2018 and 2019 working with municipal leaders in Battleground, Erin and her team, to create a really effective Battleground EOC. Funny enough, we were scheduled to have our third in a row EOC exercise in March of 2020. Something happened, it got derailed. I don't remember why. So, but yeah. Policy group, that's you folks. You're the people who make the decisions on the big level, policy level, okay? So you would make the decisions around emergency declarations that could deal with evacuations, curfews, change to public services, modification of municipal code. These are things that are all done at the policy level. That's unique to each city and how its code is structured. But the thing with the policy level is that the EOC provides them the information they need to craft those decisions, make those decisions, and then help flow those decisions back to both the community and the people who are going to put those decisions into practical use. Public information. So, how many of you have a cell phone? Show of hands. When we have a disaster in the year 2022, I have about 30 minutes to beat the cell phone. I have about 30 minutes to beat social media and misinformation. I have about 30 minutes to inform your community members of what you would like them to do and what they can do to lessen the impact of disasters. So that's how quickly we have to get messages out that are as accurate as we can make them regarding life-saving measures, evacuation, alert systems. You as policymakers provide a key component of public information because the people that you serve want to speak to you and you want to speak to the people you serve, and we understand that. Our role and our goal in public information is to provide you the best information we can given what we usually don't know about a situation. And we try to do that as quickly and effectively as we can. But in the early minutes and hours of most information or most incidents, what we don't know far outweighs what we do know. Key point of public information is speaking with one voice. We always try to encourage senior officials to coordinate their messages with their on-scene PIO and with their EOC. How many of you remember the Eagle Creek fire in Oregon in 2018? How many of you know that there is a Larch Mountain in Multnomah County, Oregon? How many of you know there's a Larch Mountain in Clark County, Washington? How many of you know what's on the Larch Mountain in Clark County, Washington? The reason this story becomes important is because during the Eagle Creek fire, our friends in Oregon decided to evacuate Larch Mountain without coordinating that message across the river. Now, at no time was the correctional facility in Washington ever going to be evacuated. But when all 4 news stations announced Larch Mountain is going to be evacuated, my phone started ringing really quickly. The first person was the warden at Larch Mountain wanting to know where he was going. The second person was the Clark County Sheriff wanting to know where they was going. Communicating those messages and coordinating them becomes really, really important to avoid misinformation or causing undue stress to the public. That story is amusing. There's others, though, that have had more serious consequences. So making sure that we coordinate public information really is key to helping those that are most impacted by these disasters deal with them in the most effective way they can. The Joint Information System is part of our incident command system, and it has with it policies and processes that your PIO will help use to structure the message, as well as provide you input from what your community members would like to know regarding what's going on. What the Joint Information System does is it makes sure that every important community partner has their voice heard. It makes sure that information flows both ways. During an incident, during an emergency, I'm sure most of you want to know what your community members want to know, and you want to address their concerns. The Joint Information System helps that information flow from the impacted community to the policymakers. It also helps you get your voice out to those both up and down the chain and in your communities, so that we're all telling the people that are impacted the most what we're doing to help them and what they can do to help us help them. So how does it work? Basically, what we do in emergency management is called GRID, G-R-I-D. We identify gaps that we need to close or we need to mitigate against. We provide resources to those who are going to need them and use them. We provide information to policymakers and responders, and then decision support. And again, I mean decision support. We don't make decisions. So let's assume that we have a no notice event, like the Cascadia subduction earthquake zone, which will happen in 2031 because I retire in 2030. So the bad thing happens. We have the initial first response, and that's where we have a need for gap closure, resources, information, and decision-making. In these type of events, we're usually playing catch up for the first period of time until we can establish what these are. We will activate the EOC at the city and county level. We'll also start getting in regional, state support, federal support, and our idea is to close gaps. So since Chief Fort's here, I'll give you that as an example. This thing happens, and he says, Scott, I have 2 officers down. I could use 2 more officers, and I need extra signage and barricades to help get people out for evacuation. I'm going to reach out and try to get him that support. Then he's going to call me up and say, Scott, I need information on I-5 North, SR-14 East and westbound so I can tell people where to go. I'm going to try to get him that information. Scott, I need to know what the council and the state are going to do about this and that. I try to get him that information so that he on the ground can make the most effective decisions he can. That's how it works for a no notice event. For a notice event, like a winter storm, we try to get some of that grid done beforehand. If we know something's coming in, we'll call community partners, we'll tell them what we think is going to happen, and try to identify those gaps ahead of time. Again, Chief would tell me, Scott, I've got 2 officers that are out on vacation. Can I get some staff to plus up? Can we activate mutual aid? Are there anything that we know that we think we're going to need? We try to get those things in place so that when the bad thing does happen, we've done what we could to lessen the impact. At that point, when the bad thing does happen, we have more of a coordinated response. We've cross-leveled supplies and resources across our partnerships. We still activate our EOCs and provide regional, state, and federal support. We still close gaps as what they occur. But for a notice event, we understood a little bit more And so our gaps are probably not as severe as in a no notice event. Pardon me. Some of the ongoing projects that we have going on, just-in-time training for emergent volunteers. We work a lot with community neighborhood associations to provide information on what they can do for disaster preparedness. We work on expanding our community emergency response team training. We just sent out invitations for our first post-COVID class. We'll be resuming training for that sometime here in June, so we're excited about that. Human impact plan. This is the biggest one that we spend a lot of time on, because every disaster, regardless of the size or scope, does one thing that I can promise you, and that is it will impact people. And so we do what we can to try to anticipate what those impacts will be and what we can do to lessen them. As I mentioned, we worked with Battleground on their EOC, EOP development in 2019. I think Kay still would probably love to share with you her stories of her experience doing that. In fact, that's why I'm doing this virtually. I'm afraid of her. We've also been working with the city of Ridgefield on their plans, and then we have plans to work with the city of Camas and Washougal on getting their plans. But I do appreciate Battleground's willingness to step up and be the first one to take the lead on getting this program in place. It was a really pleasure working with all your team. So how does that kind of work? The first thing we did when we began to develop the Battleground Emergency Operations Plan is we broke everything we do up into primary business function, mission essential functions, and disaster essential functions. Primary business function and mission essential functions are simple. It's what we do every day. It's how we and you provide the services to the members of your community in the most effective way. When bad things happen, though, we have a new set of challenges. We have the new set of needs. We call those disaster essential functions. And I'll give you an example. In late 2020, we received a request from Clark County Public Health in the state of Washington to set up a mass testing site somewhere in central Clark County. City of Vancouver offered a Tower Mall location down on Mill Plain. We estimated that we needed between 50 and 70 people a day to staff this. Strange coincidence, the city of Battleground had shut down all of their City of Vancouver had shut down all their parks and rec department. In the middle of a pandemic, they weren't really staffing parks and recs. So here was a group of community city employees who are skilled with working at the community. And we had a need to put those people to work shoving Q-tips up people's noses. I'm sure that you've seen many municipal job descriptions. I can guarantee you shoving a Q-tip up somebody's nose is not in anybody's job description. I think it might be under other duties as assigned. The point is, in that moment, we had a disaster need. We had a need to test as many people we could as effectively as we could. And we had a pool of people who were trained in serving their community that were able to stand up and answer that call. In other disasters, that might mean manning points of dispensing or dispersion and handing out food, water, clothing. It could be staffing shelters. It could be answering community information hotlines. So what we try to do at this stage of the planning is work with each department and identify what their key mission and business essential functions are and where they might have capacity in staffing for disaster essential functions. And I really want to emphasize these are disaster essential functions. They're things that we only need when a disaster hits, but when they do, we need them a lot. And having dedicated members of the municipal staff, people who are used to working with their community, who have the capacity to do these functions, helps us deal with the incident and get back from the incident as quickly as we can. So after we had made the continuity of operations plans, then we started creating the emergency action guide. This is a digital guide that is essentially, what do I do in those first few moments when a bad thing happens? One of the hardest parts of dealing with disasters and emergency is for somebody to make the mental transition from everything is great to potentially the worst moment of my life. We call this going from blue skies to black skies. And there's tools that we can use in training that we've taught some of your staff. There's quick action guides like this that we provided. And essentially, these are tools to help everybody make that quick transaction. Later in the year, Cressa will be transitioning our website to a more robust platform. And at that time, we will be able to also help transition the Battleground Emergency Action Guide, as well as other ones, to a more user-friendly platform. So we're excited about that. Then we began creating executive department executive actions. These are the things that are happening not just at the individual level, but at the department level to respond to various disasters. And finally, the continuity of government plan and what happens at that leadership level to effectively make sure that the support is given and decisions are being made. We helped identify some of the mission and disaster essential functions of all those levels. We did a couple tabletop exercises and they were quite successful. And hopefully in the near future, we're able to do some more of those again. It all comes together with each of the departments providing their input so that we can function at the highest level that we can during the emergency to return to the level we want to after an emergency. So with that, I will open it up for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Walters.
So in the event of something majorly catastrophic, such as an EMP or Cascadia type event, does Cressa have access to resources like stockpiled MREs and water and things like that that could be distributed?
We do not have access to those supplies, but we have partnerships with people that do have those supplies.
Okay.
And the reason for that is that if I had a warehouse full of water, that water would probably go bad before I would use it. But if I have an agreement with Fred Meyer, for example, who rotates their stock commercially on a regular basis, and then we have an agreement to help facilitate getting their stock out to the public, that provides a ready-built distribution system, and it prevents us from wasting emergency stocks through lack of use.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, Mr. Johnson, let me, if I may, first thank you. I contacted Mr. Johnson. I had set up with our neighborhood. There are 25 houses in our neighborhood. I went to everyone to set up a neighborhood emergency place, I guess. And Mr. Johnson was kind enough to hand me a bunch of kits that talks about what you should have, what you need, everybody's phone number, and even little signs that mark which one you do number 2 in and which one you do number 1 in. And so, Mr. Johnson, I do appreciate that. And secondly, our plan is, first of all, Aaron, would you send everyone our current emergency plan?
Yes, I'll make sure everyone has the login information for both the internet and their cell phones.
Yes, and the one that talks about, who's in charge in case we need a lot of money or something, what authority that gives Megan, that kind of thing. So everyone understands that. And then in the future, Mr. Johnson mentioned that hopefully we can get together. We're going to plan for an event somewhat similar to Paradise, California, when the fire comes over the hill. And so we'll all get together and work in our grouping while others do what their jobs are. And so Aaron, we haven't scheduled a time for that yet, have we?
No, we have, I think we have one scheduled for staff at the end of June to start running through that from the staffing standpoint. And then we'll do one exercise with that. And then we'll bring that we'll fast forward that to a council study session in the future.
We just want to see if that happens, how we react. And so I'm very interested in having that done. You can't be overly prepared. Can you, Mr. Johnson? Can you be overly prepared?
No, sir, you cannot. I can always come up with another thing to challenge you. FEMA trained me. I can make a better disaster movie than Michael Bay.
Well, there we go. And then, and you can just give us a list of acronyms if things get slow.
Yes, I can.
Anyone else have anything for Mr. Johnson? Again, sir, we appreciate your time and we do look forward to you coming out and let's see if we can get through this and emerge on the other side. I don't see anyone else. I do appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you, sir. I hope you all have a good evening. I appreciate you having me out. Please contact me if you have any further questions. Have a good evening.
Thanks again. Chief, would you like to say something about this while we've got roughly 20 minutes or so?
Oh, I need about half an hour, but I'll cut it down to about 2 minutes.
That's sweet of you.
No, I just wanted to thank Mr. Johnson. He's been a great partner for us in educating us and getting us through tabletop exercises. I'm also happy that we are relatively leading the charge in that way. So I'm happy with where we are in Battleground for disaster planning. I'd like to see us do more and more planning as you all, both of you, Mr. Johnson's plural, are alluding to. So I am excited about our readiness. As they say, we plan and plan and plan, and then something happens that we didn't plan for. So we constantly do the best we can. What I have noticed is that we are solidly in the 21st century now, and here today to stay are the National Incident Management System and the ICS systems that do coordinate emergency responses. Gone are the days of cities and local governments going on their own. What we saw, just as another plug for all of this, what we saw all through the pandemic is the EOC that was stood up. And Frank, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Scott Johnson, but I believe when we were planning our mock tabletop, it was planning for a pandemic, and then it happened. So we had what we saw and learned through all of that was that the ability for CRESA and that EOC to obtain items that everyone in the county needed, like PPE and things like that, was incredible. They moved mountains because they were a central hub for that. And at that time, because they recognized it was going to be stood up for a lot longer than just a week-long period, they did create and liaison with warehouse space and things like that because they needed stockpiles of stuff. So mostly just kudos to Mr. Johnson's team and for our city. I want to also kudos to all of us, including council members that have participated in the tabletops, past and future. So looking forward to that. That's it.
Thank you,
Chief.
Mhm.
Well, and as we said in the Army, we always had a plan until we met the enemy. And so hopefully our plan will be better than what we had in some of those cases. So again, thank you, Mr. Johnson. We'll see you soon, sir.
Thank you again. Have a good evening.
Yes, sir. Okay, it's 25 minutes of 7. So we'll gather back here in about 24 minutes. See you then.
Good. Oh, yeah, she got charged. So
Are we YouTubing? We are.
Do you mute it? What about this time?
Will you mute the YouTube in the intro? Can you do that? Nope.
Yeah.
Can you cut the microphones off?
I find myself-
And I also need to know your height.
Oh, yeah, it's the one. Told you. Gotta save some money wherever you can save some money. Or you just give it to me. I'll save it for you. Please. I'm as honest as an old basset hound. And as friendly as an old basset hound. Do the other dogs like you? Other than that, I'm as friendly as an old basset. No, it's not.
Too smart for that.
It is 7 o'clock. If you join us, please, for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, Ms. Cameron. Let's see who's here.
Davis,
Here.
Walters,
Here.
Cortez,
Present.
McCoy.
Here.
Tallman. Deputy Mayor Rogers. Here. And Mayor Johnson.
Yes, ma'am. Is, Ms. Urban, do you see Shane online?
I do not see him online, no.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to excuse Mr. Bowman from tonight's council meeting.
Thank you,
Second.
sir.
A
And
second.
From Ms. Walters. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Council member reports. Are there any this evening? Yes, ma'am.
I attended the mosquito control district meeting on last Tuesday, and was appointed interim secretary, until we can find a replacement. One of our people left.
Did you step out to go to the bathroom? That's how they normally do that. She's gone, vote her in.
So aside from that, there was not much. It's a lot of procedural updates. We're going through policy manuals and things like that. So
Are they still talking about folding?
they are not folding. The county is separating from them. So it will still run with a board with community representatives.
Okay,
However, the county is not using their administrative services or their IT infrastructure.
so they're on their own?
Yes.
Do they have
So
money to do that?
that said, we're working on trying to separate ourselves from them, the IT structure and setting up a new website and all of that. So
Well, rocks are rough, raggy. Mr. Cortez, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
So just really quick, on the 3rd, I attended the RTC meeting, and they had a nice big old hour-and-a-half presentation on the resurrection of the new I-5 bridge construction project. And then on the 9th, I met with the Meadow Glade Pathfinders down at Meadow Glade school/church. And they invited me to come talk to them. And so I did. I didn't realize that the Pathfinders was actually a larger youth organization than the Boy Scouts. So that was pretty interesting.
It's a kids group.
Yes, it's almost equivalent to Boy Scouts and all the things they do. You have to earn badges and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. And that is it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one else. Well, let me take my turn. And my turn today, I spent some time with our good friends from Fred Meyer. please come on up. Our good friends at Fred Meyer did us a great service. If you have a chance this afternoon, if we end early enough and it's still light, to go by the Veterans Memorial. It looks wonderful.
Thank you.
And these ladies were a part of it. So if you'd like to just give us it's Fred's 100-year anniversary.
It is. You know, part of our legacy with Fred Meyer is Fred and Eva were really big about giving back to the community. I know for me and for Nicole, we both grew up out here and our kids went to school here, played at Kiwanis Park. So when we kicked off our 100-year, it really was kind of a natural thing to, you know, for us as parents to get back out there and to do what we could do. I know the last 2 years has been tough for every community. Just, you know, things came to a standstill. So it was really great today. I mean, there was 9 of us out there. I think we figured it was over 30 hours between the 9 of us out there. But yes, it looks great. And we're really excited to get back into the community. So we're here for you guys.
There they
whatever
are.
you need. So
There they are. Paul from the Parks Commission, Parks Board was there. And then I was there as well. We just don't take pictures real well. So,
we tried.
but yeah, they tried and it just didn't work out. But you again did a wonderful job. And let me take just a moment and say in appreciation for your donation and volunteer efforts in the beautification of the Battleground Veterans Memorial Wall and Kiwanis Park grounds, we honor your passion for serving others and representation of community spirit.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're pretty good. We have no shame. So we'll come by and see you for sure. We're shameless. Ms. Urban, is it your turn or who are we going to?
You want to talk?
Yeah, we'll turn it over to Mr. Herseg to do new employee introduction.
Evening, Council. I'm going to introduce Andre De Los Rios to you. He's up joining us virtually, so he's on the screen on the right up there. Andre was born and raised in Bend, Oregon. He moved to Camas, Washington in 2010. He graduated from Camas High School in 2015, went to Washington State University for a semester, then went to Central Oregon Community College for 2 years. He started working for his family business doing concrete for 3 years. And when he's not working, enjoys fishing and golf. Andre, would you like to say anything?
Well, of course he would.
Nice to meet you guys. Yeah, that's about it.
Can't hear you.
You guys can't hear me?
It's a little low.
You guys hear me now?
Barely.
I don't know how to change that.
Well, we don't either because we're just those kind of Zoom people. Well, let me say this. It is a pleasure to have you, sir. We wish you a long career with us. And we hope that you find value in working for the city.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're more than welcome. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, guys.
Mark, where will he be working?
He's in operations with the water group.
Okay, cool. Ms. Urban, anything else?
That concludes presentations.
Okie dokie. Moving on to citizens communications. Of course, we open the floor to any and all who come. We do have a form this evening from Mr. Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy, sir, it's a pleasure to have you. Please come right up. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome, sir.
And as you can see on the card, I am reading a statement on behalf of Carol O'Patrony.
Yes, sir.
Also
And
a resident of Cedars Phase 1 regarding annexation.
yes, sir. And when you're done, if you'll leave that with Ms. Camp.
I would be happy to, yes, and it's a signed copy.
Wonderful.
The following is an in absentia statement on behalf of the Carol O'Patrony family, 25 years of residence in the Cedars 1 neighborhood in unincorporated Clark County with a City of Battleground postal code. First, the Cedars neighborhoods have again not requested to be annexed by the City of Battleground, And the last time annexation of the Cedars was being considered, the Battleground City Council made what I think was the proper decision, i.e., to pursue annexation only when property owners seek annexation. I am quite certain that the vast majority, if not all, of Cedars 1, 2, and 4 neighborhood residents do not want to be annexed into the city of Battleground. Second, the covenants, conditions, and restrictions that govern the deeds from my and my neighbors' properties are in conflict with the city of Battleground's land use rules. Perhaps the clearest example is zoning. Our properties are limited to single homes for residential use for each site. We like the fact that our properties are limited in this fashion and do not want the city zoning, which is significantly more dense, to be incorporated into our neighborhoods. Moreover, when the city has considered annexation of the Cedars neighborhoods in the past, whether current council members are aware of this or not, it proposed requirements that would be intrusive and expensive, e.g., putting in at the residents' expense, gutters, sidewalks, relocating mailboxes, removing trees to accommodate these changes, new street names, greater tax burdens, both property and sales taxes, which add up to significant costs, and exposure to through streets where none currently exist. It is noteworthy that my neighborhood alone, Cedars 1, roughly 1/2 of the residents are retired on fixed incomes. None of this is misinformation. And whether these plans are the current council's plans or not, we have no assurance as to what future councils will pursue. Finally, the Cedars neighborhoods in the city, and particularly the Cedars City Manager's Office, have been working together to consider and achieve a best outcome arrangement as a result of the potential sale of the property that has been known as the Cedars at Salmon Creek Golf Course. The effort currently involves the county, the Cedars neighborhoods, and the city. Decisions such as pursuing annexation of the Cedars neighborhoods would, at this time, in my opinion, be counterproductive to efforts that could improve our common relationship. In closing, I am optimistic that the Battleground City Council will decide not to pursue annexation unless requested to do so. However, if it does vote to proceed with annexation, I encourage the council to separate the Cedars annexation from the Parkway annexation in order to enable the residents in these two distinct areas to vote on what they want for their neighborhoods. Thank you for taking comments on this topic. Sincerely, Carol Close of Patrick.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Always a pleasure, sir. You're always welcome.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir. Come on up. How are you?
Good evening, members of the council. John Lee, Clark County resident.
Thank you.
I would like you to take a principled stand regarding the interstate bridge replacement. This project will be the single largest public works project in regional history with potentially a $5 billion price tag. They are proposing to replace a 3-lane bridge with another 3-lane bridge. Travel times for Clark County residents will double by 2045 after spending $5 billion. It will take an hour to go from I-205 interchange at Salmon Creek to the I-405 interchange at Fremont Bridge. The IBR team reports 28% of vehicles presently on I-5 during rush hour are traveling 0 to 20 miles an hour. After spending $5 billion, they predict half of I-5 vehicles will be stuck in congested traffic traveling 0 to 20 miles per hour. Mass transit currently serves 1.7% of Columbia River crossings, according to these experts. The IBR is projecting a 10-fold increase in cross-river transit ridership by 2045, yet they refuse to produce the studies and evidence to show where they came up with these unbelievably optimistic projections. These experts are misleading politicians and citizens regarding their mass transit choice. They want Portland's Max Light Rail over Clark County's C-Tran bus rapid transit service. They incorrectly say light rail is cheaper on a per rider basis. Question, Which is cheaper, $5.44 or $8.24? C-Trans BRT system costs $5.44 per rider. TriMet's light rail is 51% more expensive at $8.24 per rider. Yet the BRT team tells citizens light rail is cheaper. The Max Yellow Line travels 14 miles per hour because they have a stop every mile. Does anyone here want to travel 14 miles per hour? Our C-Tran buses travel twice that speed. Here's a question. Would any four of you be willing to stand for your entire city council meeting? The MAX trains can only seat 40% of their passengers. 60% must stand up while they travel that 14 miles an hour. Our C-10 BRT buses can seat 60% of their passengers. What do you think your citizens would prefer? Don't forget the double tolls they're proposing. Yes, there will be one toll just for the interstate bridge, and then a second toll as you drive I-5 as soon as you touch land in Oregon. I would request a council resolution saying there's no value for Battleground citizens. Tell them to use our C-Tran bus service for transit. Tell them they can build a bridge much, much cheaper at a lower price and not need tolls to pay for it. We can and must do better for our citizens. Thank you so very much.
Yes, sir. Always a pleasure. And since Mr. Lee brought it up, at some point in the future, we'll have the C-Tran folks come out and have, his name is Johnson as well, Mr. Johnson, who is the big guy on the bridge. So we'll set that for a future meeting. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close citizens communication. Thank you both for attending this evening. And let's take just a moment and Mr. McCoy, if you'd like to speak about the Rotary and this past Saturday.
Go ahead.
Oh, please.
There was like 4 of us at the Rotary dedication of the Peace Bowl. Councilors Davis, Walters, the mayor, and myself. It was a very nice ceremony. They cleaned up the park. The Citizens of the Year roses are there. They look great. And the pole is situated right there off Main Street. It's just a really neat presentation to the city, and I was really happy that they took the time to do that.
It's written in English, Spanish, Ukrainian, and Russian.
And Swahili.
And well, did I miss one? Because it's a 4-sided pole then.
It's I think around the top, they said that it's written in Swahili.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
And the pole turns quarter turn. So every 6 months or whatever, they're going to turn the next side facing the street. So if you haven't been over there to Central Park, you should go. They've done a wonderful job. The city has done a good job. There are some things over there that looking around that we could talk about doing, and we'll get to those another day about prettying up some things that we own. Anyone else? Seeing none. The consent agenda, does any member believe that anything needs to be withdrawn?
Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, sir. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Moving on to the business, Ms. Erdman, we're going to start with you, please, madam. Number 1, annexation options presentation.
All right, thank you, Mayor Johnson. Yes, on March 21st, staff presented to council annexation options. Though the purpose of that presentation was to give council options to look at seeing how we want to clean up our boundaries. The main focus of that presentation was on island annexation method. This is back in front of you tonight to determine if you would like to move forward with one or all, or how you would like to proceed. So just real quickly, I will share my screen here and show the areas in question. So there's the North Parkway area. There's this East Parkway number 1, which is about 19.5 acres. And then there's East Parkway number 2, which is about 80 acres, not 11,000.
Oh my. But before you move on,
and we grew very much there. The East Parkway, number one, that's the property right next to the cemetery. Is the cemetery just to the north of there? Is that where we are, where the road turns to the right very sharply?
Yes,
That's where that is?
yes, that is
Okay,
correct.
thank you.
There's another subdivision that it borders up. Actually, no, let me see here. It is not directly south of the subdivision. There is another, a subdivision that is to the north of it before the cemetery.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then the Cedars area, there's the North Island here, which consists of 41 parcels, about 31.5 acres. There's this Northeast Island, which is 5 parcels, which is about 4.5 acres. This Southwest Island is 21 parcels, about 16.6 acres. And then this south area over here is 88 parcels, but it's not, does not meet the 80% contiguous for the island annexation method. And then we also have this smaller island over here on off of Eaton Boulevard, which is 16 parcels and about 17.62 acres. So with that, I will.
Would you head back to the Cedars for a moment?
Yeah.
Is the white part underneath there, that's all the new city, all those new houses that have come into the city? Is that what that is?
When you say white, are you talking about this here?
Yes, ma'am.
That is county. So that is not within our urban growth boundary nor our city limits.
So all the new houses are to
They're
the
not
right?
Yeah, they are within this vicinity here.
Okay, so they're down in the bottom left there.
Yeah.
Okey doke.
Do you want me to stop share or continue to share?
I think we're good. Does anyone
Okay.
else need to see the map of anything? I don't think so.
Okay. So with that, I'll turn it back over to council to discuss.
Thank you. Okay, so there's the East Parkway, North Parkway, excuse me. There's Cedar folks, and there's Eaton. The question is, how do you wish to proceed? Is that the question, Ms. Urban?
Yes, that is correct. If we'd like to proceed, then if you don't want to take any action, then we'll drop this off the agenda. If you want to proceed, then the next steps, if we choose to go the island annexation method, would be to come back with a resolution that would indicate what parcels and how many voters are in that area and set a public hearing. And then we would host a public hearing. And at that public hearing, we would have an ordinance ready for adoption.
And each section would be done individually.
That is correct.
So there's no grouping of anyone with someone else.
Yeah.
Thank you. Ms. Wall.
I just have a question, Aaron. Do you know if we've had any communications from anyone from either of the Parkway locations?
I have not heard from anyone in those neighborhoods at this time.
And they've all been notified that this was going on?
So we haven't done official land use notifications, as these have just been presentations at this point. If council were to move forward, that's when we would notify the neighborhoods and that and set the public hearing.
I am in favor of dropping all of the Cedars off of here and potentially moving forward with the Parkway annexations. But
How about the Eaton?
the Eaton,
There,
16 houses down.
oh,
it was the last one, kind of rectangular. How many acres was the Eaton?
16 or 17.
can I see the map again?
16 parcels, 17.62 acres.
And what's that near? Is that near the Methodist church?
So this,
That's
right there.
Yeah, east of or west of
The church.
20th.
Which
So
one's
that
the
would
church?
be next to the school, the
Is that the one that opted out though? 104th?
No,
There's a whole neighborhood that didn't want to be.
we've never seen them before.
They're in the middle of the county.
They may be the folks that complained about remember, they were, at one point, the VHA was going to build something there next to the church. I don't know whatever happened to that. It was Habitat for Humanity. Yes, thank you.
I'm pretty sure that neighborhood.
I don't
If
ever,
it's 104th or 107th, it's the whole.
I don't recall us ever talking about them.
It is 104th Avenue on the map, just.
They don't. The people I know that live there, they had no interest in ever being annexed. There was an annexation. They fought.
Well,
I think it was when the school got annexed in.
oh, the little Christian school next to it.
Yeah.
So there's the Eaton as well. All
Yeah,
the,
I don't know about that. I don't know enough about that particular area. I think I would rather hear from the residents. So I think for now, yes, to go ahead with it so that we can get to the public hearing portion. But I definitely would like to take off all of Cedars from this.
okie dokie.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Davis.
I as well, I believe that the Cedars neighborhood have made themselves very well known that they're opposed. I think that they should be removed from it. I think it should be separate. This Eaton one is not on the agenda packet today. I know we've talked about it before, so I was going to ask if anybody had come forward about them. So I am against the Cedars. I think it needs to be separate and not go after that, and the other ones move forward. We haven't heard anything.
Well, they haven't been told yet.
So when, yes, the way that works is there's a little green sign goes in the front.
Right.
You know how that
Yep.
works. Okay. Little green sign. Anyone else?
I have a question for Aaron.
Yes, ma'am, please.
So we talked about the benefit of annexing, the cost benefit. Wasn't this a negative for the city if we were to take on these properties, that we would actually lose money?
The Cedars area would be a negative just because they're outside of our sewer service boundary currently, so they pay more in sewer service fees. The rest, with the changes with the fire annexation, it's almost a cost neutral for the property owners.
And that's for the Parkway?
For Parkway and for Eaton, it would be about cost neutral for the property owners, and it would be a minor benefit to the city as we would be then receiving their property taxes as we don't currently.
Thank you.
Yep.
You're happy?
Yeah, I'm done with my question. If that's what
Okay.
you're asking.
Anyone else? Oh, wait. Yes,
Sorry.
ma'am. No,
Sorry, I
that's
just
fine.
have
That's fine.
one more comment that I want to make
Yes, ma'am,
about
please.
the Cedars. Apparently this has been in front of the council several times now. And I feel like at this point, it's always been voted to not annex them and to let them come in at their own pace. And at this point, I would like to have some kind of an agreement that we're not going to keep bringing this back.
Can't do that.
Each time that they have to go through this again and get their neighborhood together and all of that it's like a fight to them, and we lose their trust even more each time that happens. And so I don't know if there's any kind of a agreement that we can have with their area that we won't try to annex them again or something, but I just don't think that I think it's not beneficial to either us or to their area, to their neighborhoods to continue to every couple of years have to go through this. So that's all I have.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
I would echo a lot of those sentiments. I think what stopped us from doing that is we can't tie future council's
That's
hands.
correct.
But I think what the council as a whole could say, and what I would be in favor of saying is, as a singular council member, I'm not in favor of bringing in parcels that don't want to be in the city, nor am I in favor of creating new islands. And any annexation that comes in that's not adjacent, I would probably also vote down. So that's kind of, I think that's the best we can do is give our stance on it and allow people, hold us to our word essentially. But I would agree with the two previous comments. You want to talk about financial benefits. If we voted to try to annex Cedars in, all that's going to happen is you're going to go to resolution. You have to pay for that resolution on the ballot. It's going to get voted down. And for what? For a cost neutral effect on the city. So my stance is if people want to come in, then come on in. If not, then status quo.
Thank you, sir. And he is right. In 2024, when the new council comes in, they can throw everything out we did, except for paying any money we borrowed. That's the only thing they can't throw out. You got to pay back your bills. And so I will say over the years, though, the difference between then and now is that there are 100 houses of Battleground City residents just across the hill from them that weren't there last time this came across. So there's Battleground to the north of them. There's Battleground to the east of them. There's Battleground to the south of them. And really there's Battleground across the street. And to get to their neighborhood, you have to drive on the Battleground street. So that's the main difference at this point. Okay, we'll get rid of that and we'll just start from the beginning. We'll start with Cedars. How about that? So all in favor of annexing let's make sure, Ms. Urban, we're doing this right before we move forward. As we go through, just to see who we're interested in, is how do you wish to do this?
Yeah, that will work if you want to take the Cedars area as a whole, or if there's specific islands you're interested in. But if you're talking about it as a whole, this will work just fine.
We'll do all of them so it'll be the Cedars, it'll be the North Parkway as a whole, and then Eaton as a whole.
Sounds good.
Okay, good.
Point of clarification.
Yes,
This is just an advisory vote on whether we want to see a
If we
resolution
want
brought
to move forward,
on annexation.
if we want to move forward, yes. So we're just giving direction. Yes, sir. Thank you. And before we do that, I see Mr. Cortez is rolled in. Mr. Cortez, sir, what may we do for you?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make this formal, so I'd like to make a motion that we proceed on moving Parkway 1 and 2 and Eaton to future annexation public hearing.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. And we'll just do a voice vote. Gosh, that's tough to say. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? One. Right? Okay. 5-1, Cameron. And so we've taken care of Parkway and Eaton. Let's move to the Cedars.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Please, sir.
do we have to take any? We've already taken a motion.
Well, but all three are separate. We're separate. So we loaded two together and so it's up or down on the Cedars as well.
Yeah, but
I would like to make a motion to take Cedars off of the urban growth boundary annexation.
point of order, so that's the problem with making a motion in a negative.
Yes.
Right, so I think that if there's no motion to carry Cedars forward, it dies.
Correct. That's my point.
I think you're fine the way you did it because the motion did not include the Cedars area.
Yeah.
So it would drop off.
Well, then we're
Any
square.
motion we make should be included. That's not the correct motion of the urban growth boundaries.
Good
Okay,
deal.
I withdraw my motion.
Well, we appreciate it. Anything else pertaining to that, Ms. Erdman, that we need?
No, we
to-
will work on drafting the resolutions and get them set for a future agenda.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Mhm.
Ms. Erdman, would you mind if I move the staffing above the governance manual?
No, that's fine.
So let's take a moment and talk about the third on the list, the staffing needs, the presentation and the motion. That is you, Ms. Erdman.
All right. So staff and council have been strategizing about staffing needs for the legal and executive departments due to the departure of the city attorney. As we know, the city has a need for a city attorney and a prosecutor and the request for a deputy city manager. We did hold a council retreat on Saturday, May 7th, where we talked about options for these two positions. We also talked about what is on the horizon over the next 2 years for staffing needs. It was determined that we would be moving forward with a deputy city manager, a city attorney, and work on contract for a prosecuting attorney. And it was also determined in that retreat that we would like to move forward with a water maintenance worker, a sewer maintenance worker, and a building inspector on a limited term basis. So the purpose of this presentation is to get approval from council for the following FTEs: one for a building inspector that comes out of the general fund, one for a water maintenance worker in the enterprise fund, and one for a sewer maintenance worker out of the enterprise funds. Just as a heads up, recruitment for the building inspector position will begin as soon as approved, and then we will look at recruiting for the water and sewer maintenance positions in the fourth quarter of this year. The other piece for the executive and the legal pieces, they will be reclassifications of existing FTEs. So in the executive and legal department, we currently have a city attorney that is vacant that will be recruited as a city attorney. We have a paralegal that is vacant that will be reclassified to a deputy city manager position, and then the paralegal position that is there will stay the same. And we have already issued an RFP for a prosecuting attorney. We will be coming back to you potentially in the future with a budget amendment to cover the cost of the increases in the existing FTEs. We think we may have enough funding with salary savings and our other professional service line items to cover this, but we'll know a little bit more as we get closer to the end of the year. So with that, I will turn it over to council to see if you would like to approve the 3 new FTEs for the 2022 budget.
On the RFP, what's the starting date for the prosecutor?
The closing for the RFP is June 3rd. So we will evaluate and do interviews at that time.
And our current one is with us until?
Yeah, he will start to run into some conflicts in mid-June. So we're really trying to get someone appointed by mid-June. So
we're looking for a cold-hearted attorney. Is that what you're saying? Well, I guess that's not what you're saying. So
I'm just saying we're looking for an attorney. I don't care what their heart is.
So any questions of Ms. Erdman? Is there a motion for what Ms. Erdman just spoke about?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to move to authorize 3 additional full-time equivalent staff positions for building inspector, water maintenance, and sewer maintenance as presented.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. We'll just do never mind. You know what we're going to do. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. I don't know why I can't say that. So let's move now to governance manual. Of course, that just deals mostly, well, it is all of us and how we work. Ms. Erdman, your part in this is what?
So the governance manual committee has been working, we've had three meetings to kind of go through what Christine had put together for us before she departed. She kind of did a draft manual that incorporated some of the things that we've been talking about over the last few years. The committee's gone through those and we've highlighted a few things that we need consensus from the rest of the body. And there's quite a bit of information here. So we can kind of take this in stride. We don't have to do all of this in one meeting. We can, knock out 4 or 5 of these questions and then bring this back as well. But I have kind of a list and I can share the main manual and we can go through those if that works for you guys.
Yes, ma'am.
Governance.
And then we'll let
members feel welcome to jump in at any time.
which one of you gentlemen want to kind of take the lead on this?
So, sorry.
Oh, no, Mr. Cortez is going to be speaking for the committee.
Okay. So one of the topics that we were discussing was approval of the agenda at the beginning of every meeting. So we currently don't do that. We do allow that if there is an amendment that we make an emotion to amend it. One practice is that we just adopt the agenda at the beginning of every meeting. That way, if there is something that needs to be added or deleted, that happens at that time. So I will let you guys discuss that topic.
But by not doing that, are we out of step with any RCW or any requirement, legal requirement?
No, as a matter of fact, like agencies like C-Tran and others, they actually do that. And so it would be almost a best practice to go back to or go to that. So.
Okay, so we're not breaking any rules or anything. It's just trying to clean up. Does anyone have any doubts on that they wish to express? That seems pretty easy. If all of them are this easy, then we're on a roll.
And actually,
Yeah, see, we started out with an easy one.
Oh,
Aaron, if you don't mind, if I jump in really quick.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm not trying to, shortchange the process here, but really, for the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 items, 7 bulleted items, those are pretty much what I call vanilla, right? I mean, they're pretty simple, very non-controversial in my opinion. And I think Mr. McCoy probably would agree. Should we add a study session, on the off Mondays, city is, getting a lot busier, a lot more stuff that's going on. And we talked about, whether we want to add an actual a study session to the off Mondays. So that's something that's.
Would that be a standing event
That
or
would
would
be a-
that be a called
A
event?
standing event.
And what Mondays are you going for?
Well, they'd be the off Mondays that we do not have council. meetings.
I understand that. Would it be both the second and the fourth, or would it be the second or the fourth?
I think the proposal was the second and the fourth.
Yeah.
So every
Would that
Monday-
replace the
The one that occurs before this meeting.
So it'd be every Monday.
So,
Yes.
okay, just so that we get this
Yeah.
in tune. The first and the third would start at 7.
Right.
The second and the fourth would start at whatever time we
Whatever time we
chose.
decide, yeah.
The thought process behind it was, and whether it's both Mondays or not, was it allows for more in-depth discussion. A lot of times, not necessarily this last one, but there have been times where study sessions maybe get cut short or we can't start early enough. So that was, and I'm not advocating for or con, I'm just giving that was the thought behind it.
And I believe, Aaron, if I'm not
Friday.
mistaken, if we did it this route, we'd be able to take action on those.
We can decide that.
Is that correct?
So that's another decision point, is if we want to allow action items to be done in study session. The way it's currently written right now is that it's not the goal, but if there's an emergency situation or it needs to happen, that we can do that.
And so if we went this route, allowing us to take action on those off council meeting. Again, we would still have to meet the requirements of posting notice and all that kind of stuff.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
How often in the past have we had a study session that took so long that it interrupted with that? Because for me, I'm looking at it and I'm saying it's a lot easier to block out the first and the third and know I'm all in. And then now we're talking 4 Mondays that we might just have a 15-20 minute meeting, but now we've blocked out a whole Monday. So my feeling is, how often do we see a situation come up on a study session that requires more than an hour? And if that's the case, maybe that's serious enough that it should be delegated even more like a special meeting or something.
Well, I'll give you 2 points of information that might help answer that question. Number one, before any of us were on council, this goes back to the Bill Ganley days, they did used to have meetings once a week, right? And so that was the norm. Then we went to this, twice a month. And so, one of the things about some of our council meetings is they have gone, 9, 10 o'clock are up to our limit of 10:30. And so as we go in further in the night, what is the effectiveness of us to make decisions, knowing that each and every one of us, well, most of us have a full-time job, so we have come from a long day's worth of work. I knew you would like that.
Wow,
Mr. Mayor.
that's kind of rough, buddy.
Well, again,
I say that tongue in cheek. Mr.
I
Mayor.
understand.
But no, in all seriousness,
Taking that
so we can actually have maximum public participation, because again, the public, it's more likely than not that the public is not going to want to stay till 9, 10 o'clock at night, right? They have families, they have lives just like we do. And so we spread out the meetings and make them.
And I can share my objection to, or go
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. Yeah, please do.
Oh, go ahead. You go first. I've got more.
So my concern with this is, it's harder and harder to get people to serve. And additionally, when people signed up, it was the expectation was, here are the meetings, they're the first and third. It's what it's been done. So I think that the time to make a change like this is during an election cycle or before an election. You would let the incoming and people filing know, hey, we're going to expand meetings to every Monday. So now you know what the temperature pool you're getting into is. So I kind of hedge away from this proposal myself.
And again, for me, since I've been here, I think the budget, one night, we went super long, and then we had an executive session that went super long. But other than that, we're out of here by 9:30, and I haven't had a study session, I think that has come even close to going over. I don't know, I'm hesitant on that point. That's just my feeling.
I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
So if we enforce the time limits on council members speaking, that would speed up the meeting too. Or we have time limits on.
Yeah, we won't be doing that.
It's in the rules.
We've taken a blind eye to
Yeah,
that.
well, that would get us out of here sooner. I mean, those are the things that.
I'm a little leery of this as well. I don't mind a called meeting if it's necessary on a second or a fourth. But I won't speak for Mr. Rogers, but Mr. Rogers and I have never missed a meeting. I haven't missed a meeting in 10 and a half years. She hasn't missed one in 6. I plan vacations around city council meetings. And so to tell Mrs. Johnson, I don't want to go home and tell her. So I'm on this one, as far as I'm concerned, I'm a called guy. I don't want to have a standing one as we are right now, as it's being proposed.
Okay.
So should we just go down the dice and see how, I think we know how we feel on that.
I'm not, yeah.
So let's, if we can, Mr. Cortez, we'll move on.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
So it looks like the approval of the agenda, or excuse me, the adding the study sessions off Mondays, as well as allow action items in a, well, let me ask this, should we allow action items in a study session?
It's the same day as a meeting?
Yeah. Because currently we can't take action.
Currently, it's just information only. That's correct.
Well, why can't it be added to the agenda then? If we're doing same day additions to the agenda, then I don't see why we couldn't just move it from the study session into the regular meeting when it came.
So Mr. Cortez, let me make sure I understand. If I come to a study, if I don't come to a study session, but I come to the meeting and all of a sudden we're voting on something that we talked about the previous hour. Is that what you're asking us, or you're telling us that to take a vote at the study session and end it there?
Give us the flex, or give council the flexibility to take action at that study session.
I don't see anything wrong with that.
It's not a study session then.
Right.
It's, the study session is designed just for informational purposes. The general community doesn't come to the 6 o'clock session for the most part. So I'm not interested in doing that. I think if it's something that we need to take action on, we can add it to the regular meeting agenda and take action there.
Okay,
I agree.
we're moving on.
So let's drop that one off, Aaron.
Okay.
We also talked about, should we take roll call during a study session? Currently, right now, we don't.
Question on that comment, actually. If it's a study session, it's for information, is that formal? I mean, it doesn't really matter one way or the other, we're here, but my question to you is, right now, it's informal, informational. Is a roll call really necessary? What would be the benefit of something like that? What am I missing?
In the past, we've had counselors who have stated, I wasn't there for that. Therefore, I'm against it, I'm for it, I'm for whatever. And so by taking a roll call vote, it would, listen, you got to come. And so I see some benefit to that, not a great deal of benefit, but I do see a little benefit of that to see who's making the meetings in case in the future it comes down to some fight on the dais that,
Isn't attendance in the minutes for the study session already?
Yeah, it's in there.
it's in the study session minutes, even though it's just attendance and that's all the minutes are in that.
And if we're late, it will say what time we got in.
Then is that good enough?
So let's go and drop that one off, Aaron.
Okay.
Another item for us to discuss is the total time for public comment. Says, we put the example, all public comments must be completed in 30 minutes or just don't regulate it at all. I know we 30 minutes for all.
A total, not
per.
each.
Yeah. And again, that kind of goes, we have the clock that's what, is it 3 minutes?
3 minutes.
3
On the
minutes.
Clock, generally speaking, we really, it's a suggestion, if you will. And so we were thinking of, do we put that there to, again, these are our meetings.
We loosely adhere to the 3 minutes and will only wrap someone up when they start repeating themselves. So if it goes a little long, we of course offer that. I've been to meetings here that were fisticuff meetings that they lasted, public comment lasted, if I remember correctly, about 2.5 hours.
Yes.
And I'm the person that says we take everyone who walks in the door. We will state to folks though, and I don't know, I think it's in there that if you come as a group, we ask you to have 2 or 3 people kind of speak for the group and go from there to make it a little easier for everyone. Or as you step up, just go ditto and sit down. But I'm not, and I don't want to limit that, to be honest.
Is that consensus from the rest of council?
I don't want to limit it. I feel like if you show up,
If you make the effort.
yeah, and if it's something important that people want to tell us about, I agree. I think we should be here.
And I think then the responsibility, if we drop it, the responsibility really rests on the mayor.
And at that point, if there is a crowd, then it's 3 minutes, and at 2:45, we start giving the signal.
Okay.
So that everyone has a chance.
Aaron, let's drop that one off. And then the other one was, we've had this kind of, we ran into this when I was mayor and when we had COVID and we were meeting primarily off of Zoom, having written comments that were either submitted via email or sent to the city clerk, read into the record, or just provided prior to the meeting. Do we want to allow for both? Do we want to, if somebody sends an email and says, hey, I want this read in the public record, well, it's already technically been in the public record by it and sent by email. So
Nope. Someone.
So here's my thought on that. As long as every one of the counselors are able to see those communications and read those communications prior to the meeting, and that and as long as it goes into public record, which it does, I have no issue with just having the email. It doesn't necessarily need to be read in. Prior to when you were mayor, that discussion, on the top of the agenda, yeah, on the top of the agenda, it said specifically to the procedure was
exactly.
was to do that, and that was where my issue came in with people writing in their comments. So I was instructing people per our own directives, and it wasn't happening, and so that was why I made a big deal about it.
And just to add to that as well, that was part of our emergency declaration with the virtual component. So that kind of sparked us to think about how we want to do it with the hybrid style.
So my only comment is that as long as there's an exception for like reasonable accommodations for somebody that can't make it here, that we read it into the record. Right.
The way it's written right now is unless the mayor asks the clerk to read written mail or email documents, they'll just be emailed, but the mayor can request to have them read at this point, the way it's currently written in the document.
I mean, during the pandemic, okay, fine. That made all the sense in the world. But you just said it, if it's worth saying, it's worth coming. And so I, for years, made it here before I was on the council and said in the audience, I truly believe if it's worth saying, it's worth coming. And so I think your group suggesting that's where we want to head.
Right.
Correct.
Minus ADA reasonable.
Well, I mean, if someone sends something into Ms. Camera that states, because of whatever reason, if there's a health reason or a fiscal reason, we'll certainly, and I would think any mayor would take the time to do that. Yeah.
Those are always going to be outliers, not.
Yeah, it's not the norm, wouldn't be the norm. Yeah, that's cool.
So I guess, Aaron, it looks like we want to go in that direction, so we'll keep that.
Right.
And then the next one was written to allow remote participation. So should we have parameters around this? Do we want a list of excused virtual attendance options, that kind of thing? I really wasn't hot on this one, but this is something that I want council to talk about in terms of virtual participation. So
I think the gist around this was we didn't want remote participation of council to be abused.
Yeah.
And didn't really know how to put that into words. That makes sense.
If it's worth saying, it's worth coming.
It kind of along the same lines, yes.
And so I would never step in front of someone's work needs. If you're in South Carolina and working, we would never do that. If you're on vacation in the Azores or wherever you may be, I wouldn't be in front of that. I would if one of us all of a sudden decided that I'm just going to sit at home in my shorts
Who's my dog?
with her dog, and we never see you for three meetings. That would irritate me. That would irritate.
That's the gist, yeah. What number do you put on that? How do you?
I would think in succession.
3 in a row or something?
3 in a row. I mean, if you go on vacation.
I mean, obviously with certain limit health or whatever. Maybe.
Well, certainly, if you're ill, then we certainly don't want you sharing it with us.
So then what are we looking for in terms of, 3 would be a good number because right now it's actually embedded in RCW that we can't have more than 3 unexcused absences from a council meeting or else we risk our seat on council. So if we want to keep it at 3, that would be consistent there. But do we want the individual to have to get
permission.
Permission from
Well, I wouldn't ask,
council,
well,
mayor,
we're all,
what are we looking
we're all,
for?
yeah, no, Mother May, I know. We're all 7 individuals. I would just ask that you send the mayor a note that I'll be Zooming this Monday.
And so there would be an excused versus excused category for that.
I-
So for example, say one of us had to have surgery and had to be out, laying flat on their back for
Certainly.
such and such amount of time.
Yeah, you just send the mayor a note
Yeah.
and, we're not harsh people.
So then we don't want to put in there a set number of meetings. that
No,
you
I
can't
would
revoke.
just state that
The expectation is to be. in
the,
person.
the expectation is to contact the mayor and let him, her, whomever know what's going on.
And then what kind of mechanisms, if any, do we want to put in there if an individual does not do that?
At that point, the mayor would state, I haven't heard from Mr. Johnson and he's on Zoom, but I did not hear from Mr. Johnson, and we just move on. We're not gonna spank anybody.
I like the flexibility there.
There is some flexibility.
Like Shawna said, if you're out on surgery, you can still attend. Or like, if someone gets
It
COVID,
has the potential to be abused, I think is the.
yeah.
Well, we'll look into, as Mr. Lee said, we'll look into the best of people rather than the worst of people. So I don't think there's a number there, but with the thought that you contact the mayor if you know you're going to be Zooming.
Okay. So Aaron, did you get that? Looks like we just want to add basically something pretty simple, just language about contacting the mayor, and that's about it.
So existing language and just add that. you need
Right.
to contact the mayor. Okay.
Yep. The next one, I'm sure you'll guess who put this in there. Language about explanation of a no vote. Okay, do we want to include anything like that in our governance? Meaning if any council member votes no on any particular item or issue, do we want to put any mechanisms in the governance manual to compel a council member to explain? their
I
vote?
don't know how you force speech.
Nope.
You can't.
Yeah, I'm pretty
At
sure
will.
that we already talked about this at one point,
Yeah,
being
I will.
a First Amendment violation.
Yeah,
So
so
Okay, we'll drop
The
that one
sentence-
off.
Is the sentence that's in here, do you want to keep that or strike it altogether? It just says, as a general principle, council members are encouraged to provide an explanation for the reason behind their vote.
I got no problem with that.
that's
Yeah,
fine.
There's nothing wrong with the
I'm fine with
encouraged
that.
because there's no
Requirement.
Yeah.
compulsory requirement, so.
Okay.
But I also, at the same time, if we're trying to minimize words and
We got all the time.
I mean, I think if we go by the directive that Mayor Johnson gave us was, hey, let's try to keep this as simple as possible. I just don't see the need to have that even in there.
The sentence?
Yeah,
Eh,
I think it's just kind of obvious, right? We explain what we want to.
Well, and of course, in 2 years, they can throw this out when it's all said and done. Nah, it's harmless to me.
all right. I'm not gonna fight it.
Okay, good.
Good.
I think we'll
Keep
roll,
that-
we'll
keep that
roll
in
with
there.
the sentence.
Okay, so
Keep
keep
the
that
sentence.
sentence in there
Let's
as it
roll with the
is.
sentence.
Next one was the 3-touch rule. Do we want it in? Do we want it out? What do we want to do?
I don't like it
Why?
because we spend way too much time on topics that we don't need to.
And I think the discussion for us, when we were talking as a committee, was really centered around the 3-touch rule being used as a political weapon that could slow things down.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So-
And then it dragged, a lot of times, things that didn't need three touches, we're having 3 touches. So that's why we eliminated it for a while, so that we could just take care of business, because things were getting drawn out.
Yeah, this one I have strong opinions on. The 3-touch rule is essentially there to make the body go slow and deliberate. However, that's also what your parliamentary procedures are there for. The only difference between current procedures and a 3-touch rules is 1 vote. So if you have the 3-touch rule in and you don't like it, you suspend the rules, takes a 5-2 vote. If in current procedure, if you don't like something and you want to take it out or add it, it's a 4-3 vote. So this is really the difference of one vote. That's all we're talking about here. Because what's happened in the past is a three-touch rule happens. Oh, we need to suspend this because this is a grant that the city needs approved. So we suspend the rules and you have to get a 5-2 vote. It's essentially a filibuster. It's really not present in other bodies. So anybody coming into it would be awkward. It just, you always have the ability as a body for people, and you either put it off to the next meeting, you give your reasons for why you need more time, and if your counselors agree with you, it moves on to the next meeting.
So when you speak of this, it's not the courtesy that if one of us goes, I'd like 2 more weeks to think on this. That's not what we're speaking of.
No,
It's not that courtesy.
this is like it coming up 3 meetings in a row.
Because this has been used, the 3-touch rule has been used as recently as last year, when one individual really wants to use it just to slow things down and to throw a wrench into things. Not really because they need to think about it, but just because they want to slow things down.
And I'm also, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, obviously, but I don't know what the legality of that is, because you're essentially putting a filibuster rule in this legislative process, which seems awkward to me. Because you'd have to suspend the rules, which again is a 5-2 vote. So it just is really awkward.
So you're asking for that to be dropped. The committee's asking for that to be dropped.
We're not asking for it to be dropped. We're just saying, do we want
Want
it
it in
there
or
or do
out?
we want it not?
It obviously, so a lot of these are the committee was divided on.
Yeah.
obviously, so
Yeah.
that's why-
Well-
In or out
I don't
is
want
what you're asking.
Yes.
Correct.
I want it gone.
I
Out
guess
for
that makes you
me,
an out.
out for
Out.
me, just because
Out.
I think we spend too much time on a lot of things that one of the things that I hate the most about government is how slow everything happens. It is, I'm not a very patient person, and that is one of my biggest beefs with the government. And I think this 3-touch rule is the embodiment of that. So I am also interested in taking it out.
So I have another comment. So this is separate from then, like anything that actually needs 3 touches, like if we're looking at it.
Legally
Yeah,
required.
readings and all that.
Legally,
Okay.
legal three.
Right,
Yeah.
so just
touches,
make
yes.
clarification, it's separate.
Yes.
This is just, okay.
And I think Aaron shared in one of our meetings that the 3-touch rule has actually caused some grief as far as grants and approvals, and I don't know if she wanted to speak to that.
Yeah, sometimes, we try to bring things forward as an administrative report and then 2 touches, but sometimes even with that, we run into timelines if we have grants that we need to get out the door, make decisions on. So this is, we've run up against this in the past. So we've had to suspend the rules to do it in one meeting.
Okey dokey. In or out?
Out.
Out,
Out.
out.
All right, there we have it.
Okay.
Okay, the next one was, did we want to have any discussions on setting term limits for mayor and deputy mayor? Within that discussion, we talked about how we vote for mayor and deputy mayor. And actually, Troy, I'll let you talk about that part because I think you had, if my memory serves me correct, but I think you were, was that the one you were, did you put forth?
I don't recall. Oh, well, yeah, well, I just wanted it codified. I mean, I think
Yeah.
there were some like unwritten rules when it came to mayor and deputy mayor. And as a new counselor, it would behoove me to have known that coming in. I think there was some like, I don't know what the rule or what the term is, but some historical practices.
There were past mayors who were building fiefdoms, kingdoms. And the thought was that you can't build a kingdom every 2 years. And so that allows, first of all, that doesn't happen. Second of all, it allows all 7, 1 through 7 to have a shot. And so I am a firm believer in 2 and done.
2 years, not 2 terms.
2 years, 2 years, 2 years and done. And then wait another rotation cycle and you can throw your name back in if you like. That only seems fair to me.
I don't like this note here. It says no back-to-back on the deputy mayor.
I would throw that in there as well.
For the mayor.
for both.
I just kidding.
Yeah,
That it, yeah, two and done,
agree.
and gives everyone a chance and cuts down on
And then obviously, if no-
cynicism and sarcasm from mayors.
and if nobody steps up, then obviously.
It's,
then
it's
that's-
whoever steps up at that point. Yeah. Which we never had that problem. I always wondered about that. Everyone just said, yeah, no. What do you do then?
Well, you'd have to suspend the rules.
Flip the coin.
So the question was
Do we want to-
So do we want term limits
Yes.
for the mayor and deputy mayor?
for both.
Okay.
At 2 years is what.
Two and done.
Is that what everybody?
Is everyone agreeable at two and done?
Yeah.
I don't really care.
Fine for me. Oh, yeah. I'm the one.
Okay, yes, sir.
The deputy mayor's not hot on the deputy mayor.
Oh, that part whew, feels personal, but just kidding.
It's not
If we
personal.
gotta
No,
put-
I don't
if we
really,
gotta put a boot in your butt, we'll put a boot in your butt.
some people want to be it, like, I guess, so if there, nobody else wants to accept the position, and then somebody that's
Just-
already been it wants to do it.
Then
then-
they get to do it.
Then they get to
Okay.
do it. I mean,
So there-
if
there's exceptions.
the other six are going, yeah, no.
Everybody, if the 6 take a step back, there's only one person
That's
to take a
right.
step
Yeah,
forward.
yeah. Take it from a guy
got
that,
it.
that volunteered once for the service and you don't want to volunteer a lot.
And then the other discussion within the mayor and deputy mayor umbrella was in the event that there's any tie for mayor or deputy mayor.
Coin flip.
Arm wrestle.
I don't know, a
Mario Kart.
coin, I'm reading that and I keep saying to myself, really a coin? I think.
Well,
it
that's-
seems very.
But that's a coin toss is what's practiced with the county auditor
And
in
the
the event
RCW
of
too.
a tie, and it's codified in state law.
In Nevada, you cut cards.
I don't like the seniority.
Choose the
One.
oldest person.
I just, yeah, I don't like the seniority thing. I think,
You're the youngest, sorry.
I think
I'm
that
the
goes back
oldest.
to Mayor Johnson's discussion about a kingdom or a fiefdom or
Yeah,
whatever. So to me, I think a coin toss is the
That's
most fair.
take it or leave it. Move along.
Yeah.
So,
So Aaron, looks like there's consensus on, in the event there's a two-way tie, which I've never heard of a two-way tie
No.
as long as I've been here, but in that event, then we do a coin toss.
no.
Maybe
best
somebody's
two
out.
over.
So just to clarify, coin, okay, but on the terms, so we're talking 1 2-year term, never back to back.
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay.
And then the next one was filling council vacancy, the process.
Oh, can we put that on the next meeting? That's gonna be a
How
long
many
one.
are left?
3 more.
Let's skip past that one for now.
Actually, that's really the only one left. That the next one is ethics committee. We'll be setting up a meeting with the ethics committee to talk about that process. And then we'll probably have meetings with every other committee to do their purpose statement. So that will be stuff that will happen later. We'll bring back
The council
when
vacancy.
we adopt.
Oh, okay. So we're at the end of the line?
Yeah.
Well, here we are. We found ourselves at the end of the line. So what's the committee suggesting?
Well, we're not suggesting really anything on that. We do agree that it's the way that it was structured last time could be improved.
Okay.
And so how do we do that? Do we codify a coin flip? In the,
As we roll down the line?
as we roll down the line?
Yeah, basically the way this is written is that you would do voting. It gives you an option to do interviews. I believe this actually requires the interviews and then requires the voting. And if you get to a point where you have still 2 candidates or 3 candidates, the voting goes to just those 2 candidates or those top 3 candidates. If it comes down to a tie, then essentially goes to a coin flip, which prohibits it from ever going to the county to make that decision.
Okay, so you're saying that it narrows down to top 2? And then if we're stuck on top 2, then it's heads or tails?
And it requires interviews of the candidates.
Yes.
Well, at that point, by the time you got to the
Well,
top
no,
2,
before, so the process would be you interview all the candidates.
Correct.
Council gets together, votes, the voting arrows to top 2. If you can't decide, you flip a coin.
okay, so the last go around, it was reading.
Right.
whatever was sent to us.
So we
And
do-
no talking, if you will, to them. So are we getting rid of the reading part and moving on to the talking part? Is that what you're
They
asking?
would still submit an application,
Yeah,
but then we would actually have, it would be in our, governance manual, where it would be required where we would have to do an interview on top of the application.
and are those executive meetings or
No,
are those
they cannot-
public?
They
Public.
cannot,
They're
be- they cannot
public.
be. You can discuss qualifications after the interviews are done. You can go into executive to discuss
Everything would have
qualifications.
to be public.
Okay. I don't see a problem with that. Does anyone see a problem with, and let me recap just so I make sure I got it. There are applications. There are
Interviews.
choice interviews,
Public.
interviews. There are choices. Someone gets 4, they're in. If we tie at 3 each, it's a coin flip between the 2.
Sounds like you're gonna pick a top 2 first, right?
We're gonna pick a top 2 first, then if we can't come to consensus on those.
On those
it's a
2,
coin flip.
then it's a coin flip.
It gives you up to 3 rounds of voting to get to a winner.
Right. yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Not at 3 rounds, then it goes to the.
Okay, so after 3 rounds, we narrow down to the top 2.
I think it would be good if we use this process, if we, narrowed it down to maybe 2 questions apiece and had those questions predefined before we
Yes, they have to be.
before we even, it would be nice to have a list of those questions kind of at the ready in the event that this happens, so that we don't have to go through this whole process of trying to scramble and get it together.
Yeah, if you look at what Aaron is kind of pointing out, the nomination options for conducting interviews, as well as the interview question process, we have in there 3 questions, Shauna.
3 is fine. 3 is
Oh,
fine.
okay.
But, and then a time limit is that in there? A time limit for the answer?
30 minutes.
For all interviews.
Total for each person.
For each?
Yeah. And I can tell you, somebody's been through 4 of these on a previous board, that it works pretty well. You do the same questions. You ask the people not to sit in on the previous interview, so they're not listening to the questions.
Can't think ahead.
But you're asking the same questions to be fair and equitable.
That's fair. I mean, it's not Jeopardy.
No. I mean, it works well, and it provides a little more structure.
I'm good with that.
I am as well.
Okay.
Everyone else?
Yes.
Looks like we have consensus, Aaron, on that one.
Perfect. Well, that was easier than I thought.
Me too.
Woo-hoo.
Live and learn.
Does that square up everything they had?
Now, maybe we can give the county, we can forward this to the county and they can help them out.
So they may be redoing theirs too.
Rots are rough. So that squares up everything they had, Aaron?
Yeah, we will, I think the committee still has some work to do. We haven't made it all the way through the manual yet, and we need to set up meetings with the individual committees to do purpose statements, and the ethics committee will be a big one to,
Yeah, we need to gather
We didn't want to.
us folks, since I'm on that, and set a course.
That was Shane, Troy, and myself.
And then the ethics committee is you, me, and Shauna.
Yep.
Okay. Just want to make sure everyone understands. Okay. Anything else, Aaron, on that?
nope, that's all I have.
Then we're moving on to you then for some administrative reports, and it looks like Big Sam's up.
Yep, we'll turn it over to Mr. Crummett for a growth overview presentation.
Good evening, council. Let me share my screen here. Okay, Battleground growth trends. The first part of this presentation is just going to be showing you data from the last 5 years of what is up and coming in terms of development. And then I'll finish with a little bit about our city vision and comp planning work ahead. So this shows our city population at 21,520. And then the future population 2035 is proposed at 38,000. This comes from our comprehensive plan. It's really kind of the bedrock of all of our infrastructure planning and our land planning. The number is probably aggressive, but that is the number that was assigned to Battleground last time we updated our comprehensive plan. So I've got 3 slides that show what the city boundaries have looked like in the past 20 years. Going back to 2003, you can see these are the city limits lines. 25th Street to the north. The southern boundary was 199th Street or Eaton Boulevard. And then to the west is like where the Bank of America is currently. And then the east side hasn't really changed a whole lot. That's Tukes Mountain on the east side. A little over 10 years later, we went through a lot of annexations. The big one was the South Battleground annexation. That is when the Cedars territory was taken in. And then there was an expansion out toward the west side of our city along 92nd Avenue, and also some expansions up to the north. And then this is our current boundary. Not a whole lot of changes since 2014, but some incremental changes, as you can see kind of in the north section of the city. And little fragments here or there as property owners have wanted to come in. In terms of our development, getting into kind of more development activity, pre-application meetings are the first chance a developer has to propose a project with the city. And this is really an informal city between a developer, their project, and what it's going to take to get through the city processes, the fees, and really to identify any potential fatal flaws. Not all of these projects move forward, but it's really a chance for a developer to make a business decision and really kind of see what they're going to be getting into.
So that's somebody saying, I've got an idea.
Pretty much all we require is a drawing and then kind of a brief narrative and approximately $500. They will get a brief report. A person from each applicable department will give them the nuts and bolts of what they need to do. And that gives them enough information of often to go or no go. And there will be a couple slides you see that I did share the last time we were here to discuss the building inspector position. This shows our commercial industrial square feet that has been given preliminary, or actually has been built, issued building permits in the last 5 years. 2019 was a lot of the storage unit developments is why that's so high. And then everything else is just a collection of industrial buildings or other commercial development. And then I think you've seen this before. This is single family home construction. These are building permits that have been issued and homes being built. 2021 was our highest year. The last I checked, 2004, we had over 300, but we haven't crossed over 300 since that time. So it's a really, really busy year last year. In terms of subdivision plat approval, this is going back to 2017. 2021, we had 10 subdivision plats that were issued preliminary approval. What preliminary approval means is the hearing examiner gives a formal decision to approve the plat. What that means is they're authorized at the land use or zoning level to proceed. They can then submit formal civil engineering plans into Mark's division and after that, they can construct.
So that's a done deal at that point. There's no stopping anything at that point.
Correct. Yeah, once they receive preliminary approval, it would be very difficult to stop that. If a project isn't appealed within 2 weeks, that project has the legal approval to move on and be engineered and construct. In terms of the number of lots within these subdivisions, there were close to 1,200 single-family lots given preliminary approval in 2021. And I'll show on some maps of kind of where some of these major projects are. Before that, though, this is the multifamily units. We had several multifamily units built in 2019. These would be most of the Alder Creek. I may have that word wrong. They're in the Mill Creek Town Center was a number of those that were approved at that point. And in terms of where these projects are, I'll kind of give you a quick tutorial of how to get there. If you go to the city's web page, you can type in active development map, or you could get to our planning division page and click on the active development map. And then every quarter we update this map based on size. I've split this map in 2 different sections. These are some of the projects on the north side of the city. And then I'll jump down to the south side. In terms of kind of how to interpret this, the green colors are preliminary approval. So I kind of think of that as green fields. There's no construction happening at this point, but there very well could be soon. And then the red is, these have received engineering approval. So they're either under construction or could start construction anytime. And then the blue is actually final plat approval. That means the lots can legally be sold. Homes are being built in these areas. So the bigger projects that have come in the past 2 to 3 years are, you can see number 2 there, number 37. Number 37, I want to say, is close to 400 units have been given preliminary approval. And again, this is.
The numbers are not how many building lots there are. The numbers are just, they're the numbered lot.
Yeah, let me jump ahead to a slide that will help. Those numbers on the map. So you can actually print this map out, and one side is the map, the other side is kind of the key, and those numbers refer to the actual project. And these are the commercial projects. I should go back and just highlight those little red stars refer to some kind of industrial or commercial project. And then if you look up the number, it'll tell you the name of the project and a little bit of information about it. And then these are all the residential projects that are in some form of development, a total of 44. In the past few years, we've had, it's really one developer in particular who's proposed some commercial projects that will have ground floor commercial and then upper level multifamily units. And then we've got a couple projects that you've seen come through council that are looking for a development agreement approval. I threw those in. They by no means have been approved, but I just threw those in to kind of total the numbers. If these projects are built, it would bring in 660 units in some of our commercial districts.
Which one is the hotel, by the hotel people?
West Main Commons, DP Development.
West Main Commons is the one that they gave us a presentation on?
That's right. And they may be back in approximately as soon as the next council meeting or the one after to have you review that development agreement.
Which one's 15th and 20th? Northwest
Northwest 15th and 20th.
or Onsdorf and 20th? That lot? Is it one of
Those
the
aren't,
neighboring-
Oh,
those aren't
that's Dave-
apartments, right?
I don't know. They're
No.
mixed use. It's the one above my neighborhood, that
Yeah.
big field.
The big grassy field.
Yeah, it's changed a couple times. It used to be mixed use. I can't remember if actually just went straight to multifamily.
I think it's
Do you
multi-
remember that one, Mark?
They
I
were
know
on
it's
the-
Wingate Point, and I think it's actually single family now.
What
I
was
remember
that called?
correctly.
The development?
Wingate Point.
Wingate? Okay. They were out there marking stuff and all my neighbors were asking me
So
why.
will it, and you may not know this, will it be as in the same, no parking in the front and garages in the back, or is it a?
I can't remember offhand what the final layout of that is. I don't see that one even identified on this map.
It's cut off on the map.
You'd be the north.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm in the wrong part of town, sorry. Number 33.
It's right next to 33, I think. That green.
Oh, right next to 33.
Yeah, that green.
This,
Right there.
yeah, right, this green
Yeah.
piece there.
So is it maybe 33?
Yeah. it is.
Yeah.
What's 33 say? Any metal code?
So you can go back,
Coder.
you can go back and tell your neighbors.
Okay.
So 33.
Wingate Point subdivision, 24 lots. It's been given preliminary approval.
Okay, so that's again, they're in the thinking stage.
They're in the approved stage. Now it's either, and they may be in for engineering approval, but the next thing would be they get their engineering plans approved and then they can construct.
Gotcha.
And it's not uncommon. Sometimes property does change ownership between preliminary approval and engineering approval and final plot for that
Oh, yeah,
matter.
that's right. They wanted to put it like a 7-Eleven or
Yeah,
something.
bottom floor, commercial, and yeah.
In terms of what this means and for population in the next, if all of these projects are built, so we'll start with the multifamily. Past 5 years, we've had 10 multifamily projects, 751 units combined. That pencils out to 1,945 people coming to Battleground. Subdivisions, kind of the same process. We've had 24 plats approved. This equates to 5,229 people. I've taken 2.59 persons per household. That comes from assumptions in our comprehensive plan. Brace yourself.
0.6 baby ain't looking so good. Poor little devil.
Not trying to scare you, but this is just, what's been approved. That would be 7,174 people if these all get built within the next 5 years roughly.
What's the general percentage of these projects? Like, if you had 100 projects going forward, what percentage actually break ground and go forward? Would you just guess?
Well, if the economy stays strong, I mean, you go through a preliminary approval that they're often have already spent $100,000 in consultant fees just to get their project that far. They're fairly heavily invested unless there's something in the economy that just goes south and it doesn't happen. We've seen that happen when we go into recessions, but.
Well, now let's ask that question, because we can look over there by Mr. Rozier's house, and there's a subdivision that doesn't have LED lights because when they signed up 10 years ago, we didn't require them. How many are out there that have the 10-year wait or whatever it is that we're still holding on from 2012?
I don't think there's hardly any of those left. A lot of those have expired. Yes, I should add preliminary approvals are valid for 5 years.
5 years.
They can be given up to 3 one-year extensions if they're showing some progress, but eventually they will just go off the books if they don't get built. And they would have to reapply.
And I think on top of that too, and Mark, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the engineering standards are only good for up to 1 year. So if those haven't been approved yet, or if those expire, they'd have to bring any lighting or other engineering details up to standard.
Correct. When they come in, they meet the engineering standards at the time. And then once they get approval, you have, it's either a year and a half. And if you don't start construction by then you have to bring them up to date to get reapproved.
So going back to 2018, the city started with a visioning process. And this was a high level process where we reached out to the community and stakeholders and put together a roadmap of how Battleground is going to grow and what values we have and what we need to get to work on. So that vision also had a strategic action plan, and it kind of gave us some marching orders of really what we need to do to be a livable city. We've completed the land use master plan update and zoning study. We are in process on the parks plan that's to be completed in June or July. We're continually updating our capital facilities plans. It seems like, each year Mark typically has 1 or 2 capital plans to update. And then operations and maintenance is ongoing work. We have yet to update our development code standards kind of holistically. We do our ad hoc annual code updates of just some immediate things, but we haven't really taken a look at our vision and our comp plan and then really retooled our zoning ordinance. We do have some districts that have been established in the land use master plan update, but we haven't done any formal sub area plans such as like a downtown plan. And then there's always funding, execution, and then revisiting all this. So this is just kind of the broad pyramid of what we're moving forward to in the future. This is kind of a different way of saying the same thing. These were the things that were highlighted that citizens, stakeholders, decision makers felt like they wanted to concentrate on. Again, the interconnected trail network is in process. I know Mark's either completed or is completing the pedestrian circulation plan. The BG Green Plan is just another way of saying our parks plan. That's going to be before you in June. We've done some work with future jobs and industry. We've created the West Side Employment District as well as zoning standards to go along with that. But there'll be ongoing work in that area. We haven't done anything with branding or Old Town revitalization.
Just as, since I've been here forever, seems like, problem with Old Town is that those are all rentals. And trying, at one point some years ago, the idea was to have kind of the same paint scheme, to give it some sort of personality and paint scheme. But when you have California landlords, for the most part, not really interested in painting anything. And so it's been a hard pull for the city and at that point the chamber to try to get anything other than they're just individual people doing their own individual thing, and the buildings are owned out of town for the most part. So the chances of us ever getting some sort of comprehensive look down there is pretty slim in the big scheme of things.
Well, and that's what an Old Town plan is for. We would kind of do some scoping, determine what we really would need to focus on, and that would likely be, if we're to do the next sub area plan, Old Town would likely be the one we'd target.
Okay, cool.
And to kind of wrap up, what's up and coming is the city is going to be updating its comprehensive plan, likely getting started sometime in the next year. This has to be done in tandem with Clark County, as well as other cities. This happens every 8 to 10 years or so. And all the work that we've been doing in the past 2 or 3 years, we've kind of been staging that work to be put into our comprehensive plan. And that's where we'll kind of incorporate all these items such as housing, land use, parks, transportation, sewer, shorelines, water. These are all things we've actually done and will be rewriting our entire comprehensive plan. That plan has to be adopted by 2025. So that's a huge undertaking, looking at urban growth boundaries, all that. Again, it hasn't formally started, but it probably will be soon once the county adopts a buildable lands study. So there's your snapshot of what's happened in the past 5 years and what's to come. Any questions?
Just so it's on the public record, because the Reflector will put this on the front page or somewhere in the, is there enough water, Mark, to last us 2031 for 31,000 people, as the state says is coming?
Yeah, again, the master plan we just did showed improvements that we need to do that gets us essentially 20 years out. We've got plenty based on those improvements.
And then after we drink that water, is there enough on the other end to get rid of that water?
Same answer, as long as we build the improvements per the plan, we have plenty.
Because that's, my neighbors are always asking me the same question, if we're going to grow this large, is there enough water? Is there enough sewer? Is there a question for Sam? Are there any questions for Sam? That's a lot of folks. I'm a little shocked, and it's at first that you said that from 2010, would you go back to the first slide?
Sure.
Maybe, let me see if that was it.
That one.
That one, second slide. In 2010 until today, that's only 25%. We certainly have grown more than 4,000 people in that 12 year, 9 years. That just doesn't make good sense to me. I mean, it may be, I just always thought we were a little smaller in 2010 than what that is, but that I thought we grew more than 4,000 folks. But okay, so when the Reflector says we're going to be 38,000 in 10 years, we'll let some other council worry about that. And Mark will still be here. We're working on working on that for sure. Okay, well, is there anything else, Ms. Erdman?
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. I was coughing.
Is there anything else?
That concludes administrative reports.
Okay. And council communications, are there any?
I have something.
Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to share that I got a tour of the Battleground healthcare clinic last week. Sue Neal gave me a great tour, spent about an hour and a half with her. It's a really nice facility, and she couldn't say enough of how grateful she was to the city for all that they have done to help that happen. So she says that she's always needs volunteers and would love to give tours to anybody who wants to. And it was just a really nice experience, and I want to share that with you.
I know you and I talked about it, that the city robot down there, the city cleaning robot.
Correct. That was very cool. It's called RD2. It's a rapid disinfection ultraviolet light sterilizer.
Yeah, they roll it in a room and it just goes to town.
Was that from the COVID?
Yeah, cares.
It was
CARES
CARES money.
funding, yeah.
CARES money, yeah. And then
I had
yes, ma'am.
something too. So I had a conversation with Karen Bowerman last week after our study session or our retreat.
Yep.
And she was under the impression that their tax had been communicated to all the cities. It sounds like there was some definite communication issues that happened. She proposed that we have a countywide with all of the cities Zoom type meeting, and was going to try to coordinate something through her county manager and the rest of the cities. So just look forward to something like that possibly coming on the horizon to discuss the benefits that we would see as cities from that particular sales tax initiative. So,
Ms. Urban, have you heard from them?
I heard from Miss Otto last
Ms.
Tuesday,
Otto?
just letting us know that they're working on the resolution and would be forwarding that onto the cities. And that was pretty much the gist of it at that time. She was going to reach back out when they had more information.
Okay. And then I would be amiss if I didn't mention it's Armed Forces Month. Ms. Walters, myself, are veterans, and so I did a small little presentation at Camp Hope on Saturday with 8 to 15-year-olds. And hopped up on donuts and cookies and out in the woods.
You were the kids.
The kids. Yeah, and so it was good. We had a wonderful time, and there were 4 or 5 folks there talking about their service and that kind of thing. So it was a wonderful time. The next meeting is Monday, the 6th of June. We'll begin at 6 o'clock with a study session. And, oh yes, thank you. And then the regular meeting at 7. Thank you. Memorial Day, of course, is 2 weeks from today at 11 o'clock sharp. And I look forward to seeing all who are available. Hopefully it'll be a nice day, rain or shine, at the Veterans Memorial. Okay, see you then.
Next meeting.
There you go.
so,